We've got the highlights from Consensus 2025. Check it out.
So we've been friends for quite a bit, so this is a real pleasure for me to be presenting with you. And just based on your history, it seems you've always had a goal of helping people achieve individual freedom, liberty, and considering the landscape where we're seeing decentralized entities as well as centralized entities in the AI space as well as in the crypto space, would you call it a war that is going on between decentralized information versus centralized information? Where are we in that conundrum, and where will it progress?
I don't think it's a war, or at least I don't see it as a war. I see it as different options and different value benefits for each option. My company is called Decentral, so my focus is on decentralized technologies, but I'm also not an extremist where I feel that everything should be decentralized or everything will be. And I think there's choices and options, and those options are going to suit different people. I mean, I've learned over the years that banks are a relatively safe place to put money if you want to be secure. And sometimes holding your own money or being in control of your own digital assets also has its risks and security risks and things like that. So I see both sides of it, and I'm not in any way saying everything's got to go decentralized. And I just think that, people have choices to make based on different features and options, and sometimes the centralized means are good as well.
All right. Everyone knows you as one of the co-founders of Ethereum, so definitely want to touch up on that. Right now, Ethereum is at just over $2,500. It just surged $1,000 over the past month. Previously, it was there was a little FUD on it because Solana was ripping and ready to go in the last bull cycle. But I would like just to get your sense of, when you guys first started Ethereum, did you have any conception that the price would just be where it's at right now and where it will continue to go?
We had the hopes, and there was as it kind of was getting momentum very early on in 2014, there was that kind of feeling that it could be a really big thing. But at that time, the thinking of, what if it could get up to $5? It was something like 25 cents that we set it at the very beginning. And the thinking, if it can get to $5, that's pretty interesting. Then it was like, what if it gets to $100? So there was, a lot of, there was like a movement that was starting with it very early on, and we could sense and feel that it was picking up. It was a very, very committed community involved, still is, but there wasn't thinkings of what the market cap would be, I don't think, that high back then, but there was definitely hopes.
Did you ever think that it could compete with Bitcoin as a store of value?
I don't know if I ever really considered that much. I saw them as two separate things. I'm a big Bitcoin proponent. I think Bitcoin's got its place, and I have said that I do think eventually Ethereum has a possibility of overtaking in terms of market cap, but I definitely think there's a lot more utility value.
Do you still think that?
I could be wrong on it, but I think there's a possibility. I just think with the amount of use cases and the value that Ethereum is allowing to be created, I think has that opportunity with that sense in order to possibly overtake.
Well, it was built to be a better version of Bitcoin, no? In a way, with the smart contracts.
Yeah, I mean, it was meant to do something that couldn't be done on Bitcoin, and it was smart to do it as something separate. But I don't know if it was meant to be a competitor to Bitcoin. It was meant to be an alternative, which is what a lot of these other ones are. They have their features and benefits, and Solana's got its benefits to it. It's definitely newer than Ethereum, but each has its benefits, each has its users, and each provides its value and use cases, and there's a lot of choices for people to be using.
Early in the year, there was a little criticism about the Ethereum Foundation and the leadership, and that perhaps it was too centralized and relying on Vitalik Buterin, one of your co-founders. And Vitalik came out and said, yes, I have sole decision-making authority over the board, and there were some leadership changes. And I'm just wondering, when you were part of that early history, how did you see this going, and are you surprised that it has this criticism of being somewhat centralized, and where does that come from?
So way back, there was 8 founders. We each had a vote. Vitalik had an extra vote to do a tiebreaker. That's the way all the decisions were made back then. Over time, founders left, and Vitalik's the sole person as part of the initial founding team that's still with the project. Early on, I'd say that Vitalik didn't want to have, wanted more people to be making decisions, I think. So the fact now that he's the individual that's doing it, I think is a big change than what was initially planned. But I also feel that there's a lot of risks. The board initially was a real struggle back in 2015, I think it was. Some members were brought in to be an official board for the nonprofit, and that had a whole big issue and problem, and they had to get removed, and there was a lot of internal problems, and it's not the first time that Vitalik's had the sole responsibility, but I think he is Ethereum, the idea, the concept, and I think he's the one that's driving things, and if he thinks that that's the way that it should be at this time, then I'm supportive of what he's doing with that. But I wouldn't have seen it being the case years ago, but we're 10 years later right now. So it is where it is right now, and if he thinks that's the best thing for the project, then I support him for that.
Can we ever consider Ethereum as really decentralized if it has so much control from one individual?
I don't think he has, he can say things, but he doesn't have the control still. I mean, it still gets down to the people running the network that have that, but he is a very, people will listen to him, and people do listen to him. So I still think it's decentralized, but if he's got that kind of decision making for the foundation and things, then I think that's okay. But at the end of the day, it doesn't come down to him to make the full-on decisions.
What I also found fascinating and what I love is that Ethereum was born in Canada, in Toronto, right here. And Canada had this huge opportunity to call the second largest cryptocurrency by market cap a home and, capitalize on the innovation, but you guys actually went to Switzerland. And so I'm curious about what your thoughts on Canadian regulation, Canadian crypto innovation, and what can be improved upon if need be, and if there was an opportunity lost in Canada.
Well, I definitely think there was an opportunity lost. We just didn't feel comfortable setting it up here and the time it would have taken to set up here, and we were fortunate enough to follow the lead of a project that set up in Switzerland. We kind of used their roadmap, and we were able to do it very quickly. We were able to do it with the structure they have there, the cantons, the local governance structures in Switzerland, where we could literally go to the government and apply and get approved very quickly. So it made a lot of sense there, but it is unfortunate that we couldn't do it here in Canada, and it didn't make sense to at the time. There were just so many question marks about people being responsible for a project that wanted to raise capital globally, unsure about how the token, the coin would be looked at the way that we were putting it out there. So setting it up under the structure in Zug, Switzerland was the best approach for that. And I don't say it's any better right now in Canada. It's most of my colleagues have left Canada, unfortunately. I'm here and doing my business here, and I don't have any intentions of leaving. It's my family's here, but it's not easy, and it's not easy to be in the crypto space because you're under a microscope, and it's really not set up very well in Canada here to be supporting entrepreneurs and supporting projects in groundbreaking technologies. So it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge for my colleagues, and unfortunately, just so many have made that decision to go elsewhere.
What are your thoughts on Mark Carney, and if there were any way to improve innovation in crypto in Canada, how would you manage that?
I don't have much thoughts on him. I just don't and haven't followed too much about his stance on crypto, if he has a stance. I mean, I had been following what Pierre was doing, but that's a moot point really right now. So I can't specifically with Mark Carney know enough. I don't know enough whether or not I think it's going to be beneficial or it's going to be negative. I do think that Canada tends to follow a lot of others. So with maybe more advancements of what's going on in the US, we're going to pick up on that as well and maybe make some changes. But I don't think it's a very good environment right now. And I think most of the focus being on tariffs and things, I'm not sure if crypto is going to get much attention at this time.
Mm-hmm. So you have an incredible history in pouncing on emerging tech, from thermal drilling, which was one of your early ventures, to Ethereum, to now artificial intelligence and Andiami. Tell me a bit about that journey, those pivots, and what are you looking for when you're trying to search for your next project?
So I have a computer background. I was building computers when I was 8. I was on bulletin board systems with modems during dial-up times before the internet. So when the internet came about, I understood that democratization of communication and information was what was happening with that. But I was going through university at that time. I really wasn't set myself in the business world to really take or utilize the growth of the internet back in the early 2000s. But when Bitcoin, and I heard about Bitcoin in 2012, it was really a perfect opportunity for me to take my knowledge of decentralized tech and my business background and start building. And it's been nonstop building since then. Now, with the advent of AI, the vision that I've had of a one-person company or with very few minimal inputs to be able to create very large customizable projects with very few people is what the focus has been. So over the last 2 years, we've been building a project called As You Wish, which is a platform that is carrying out that vision for us of how can we work with a few people and create really customized global projects and very complicated systems using digital agents that abstract the functions of business into digital technology. And we've been building something that allows you to just kind of type in what you want, and we built these pipelines in a way that our agents work together to create very sophisticated outputs with very little human intervention or needed. So an idea would be a sales team that doesn't actually needing people, or marketing team, or all the functions that you would usually be associated with needing hundreds of people to do a project like Andiami. How can we bring it down to very few people and using more digital tools to carry it out? So a lot of work in the AI space right now, and it's exciting. It's really exciting what we're building to do this project. So it's like a platform to build platforms. And that's been the focus for the last 2 years, is how can I have a small work team but be able to still carry out large-scale projects that have very customized physical and digital areas that we need to build, but using technology to do it rather than needing the human capital to do it.
You know, what does that create in terms of a future for us? Will it eliminate jobs? Will it give us more productivity, or ultimately just flood a marketplace and make it difficult for people to operate within, because there's just so much going on? I wonder what your vision of a future with artificial intelligence would be.
I think it's still up in the air of how it's going to go. I think there's going to be more productivity, but I also think there's going to be an impact on jobs that are not creating the value that maybe can be put into AI. So I don't know where it's going to go, but I do think it's going to be a radical change, and we're just trying to stay at the forefront and build in the technology. But I think it's going to be quite disruptive, but I still can't say that I know, will the productivity outweigh the lost jobs? I'm not sure. So every time you think that that's going to be the case, you know, it ends up that the productivity that's being made for creators to build and do things gives people more tools to create the next things and the bigger things. So I'm still not certain.
And we spoke earlier about decentralization versus centralization, but a key reason you're trying to build these nodes as well is to give and empower people to be more decentralized and be able to
be more sovereign,
et cetera. And so, and essentially, your hope is to make these blockchains more decentralized, right? Well,
make the blockchains more decentralized and have less reliance on third parties like providers like AWS. So there's just way too much infrastructure that is relying on cloud providers right now, because it's very challenging and difficult for people to run nodes. So our goal is to make it super simple. And these computers are meant to be like gaming consoles. We're for gaming. These are specific hardware components that are meant for running blockchain nodes, thus allowing people to be more sovereign, people to send their own transactions, but hopefully be in more control of their identity, run their own AI services on their own machines rather than sending your private information to ChatGPT or other services. So similar characteristics of blockchain is with the AI stuff. We want to give people more freedom to be in control of their digital life, and also then putting in AI tools to also do that as well, with less reliance on companies that are actually taking all your data and information, and who knows what they're doing with it. So
I guess that's what I was getting at in the earlier question of, this war between centralized and decentralization, because if all these protocols are running on AWS, really this seems decentralization is on a spectrum.
it's not something that's talked about very much, but I think it's a really big problem. I mean, AWS saying tomorrow that they're not going to allow Ethereum to be run anymore could be a catastrophic thing, or a government saying that's not allowed anymore, and them being forced to do that would really put Ethereum into a bad position, and others. It's not just, there's so much being run on the cloud right now that I don't think people will understand and recognize that it is a weak point and could be a very difficult situation. So our goal is to kind of provide an alternative and hopefully shift people away into their own machines and create an alternative that lowers the reliance on cloud providers to turn it truly into a more decentralized space.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And tell me a bit about this Quest for Liberty game. Tell me the creation process within that, and I guess it goes into the theme of helping people become self-sovereign.
Yeah, so the game's called Quest for Liberty, and it's as I mentioned earlier, you have these physical kits that get sent to the players, and they need to solve puzzles, and the puzzles are around the importance of obtaining that liberty and that freedom, the quest for liberty. So along the way, we're hoping to engage with the audience and players about the importance of people being a little more...
How are you designing these games? I'm just curious, because a lot of your creativity is...
It's going to be with As You Wish. So the platform that we're building allows for very complex, customizable outputs, which is what we need to do, because every kit is tailored to each individual player. So there's a lot of customization for each player, but in order to do something like that, we need to build this platform that'll enable us to create this physical digital game that we're putting out, which I don't think has ever kind of existed in the way that we're doing it. So it's the platform that we're building in order to build this is the whole point of As You Wish.
And is each game tailored to you? And
to the player.
It's kind of build your own...
You have your own avatar, your own character in the video game, your own character in the books, and you're solving puzzles related to your story. So it's extreme customization of physical goods. And then the ability to chip the boxes so that they're one of a kinds. You're not going to want to sell that thing that's kind of tailored and made for you, the player. So hopefully to reduce the secondary markets on the kits too. So.
Anthony, we're out of time, but I do want to get one more question in, which is if you could give advice to aspiring entrepreneurs out there, some life advice, what would that be?
What I've done is always base things on, I think integrity and principles, and from building our wallets, which were non-custodial, they were wallets that wouldn't allow people to, or would allow people to survive us if that ever happened. If we went out of business, they could still have their keys and export it out there. So I set my principles really early in the space to try to align it with the themes of decentralized technologies. So user-controlled things. So building out the principles and then carrying out and not succumbing to things that end up having you have to change your ways and go down a different path. So some people change because of investors. They got investors, and then their goals of what they want to do kind of shift towards where their investors doing. So I've tried to only fund my own projects and not take outside capital, which is challenging. But along the way, hopefully it's sticking to your principles and doing things that aren't leading you into situations where you need to change and do things that you don't necessarily want to.
All right. Stick to your vision, stick to your principles. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you.